Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to All Things Division 3 Soccer with SimpleCoach and Jackie. I am SimpleCoach all day, all night. That there is Jackie all day, all night, even though she confuses day, night with all the sleeping she does. That's what happens when you get old, I guess. Hey, thanks for checking this top 25s out for the week of September 25th. This is being recorded on Tuesday, September 26th. Takes into account just the games that were played as of Sunday. Why do I say that? Well, that's because last night there were a couple games that may or may not have impacted the top 25, so I'll carry those forward for next week. So just keep that in mind, including the records. I haven't updated records. They're all as of Sunday. So before I begin, though, I just got a couple of things I just want to let you know about. First off, you guessed it, there's at least, I think, tomorrow we're going to record another episode of the new show, Season 2. Myself and Mr. Nicholas Petru, aka Paul Newman, on the D3 boards are scheduled to record. So I'm hoping tomorrow night or Thursday I will post that, and hopefully we'll have some fun banter. Both of us are sort of gunning for some interesting stuff, so we generally work apart, come together, and then we just go at it. So a lot of fun doing it, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as we do. I am actually trying to line up a very interesting interview. I'm hoping to find out. Watch, I'll get rejected, but it's outside the ordinary. Not a coach; it's an administrator. So hoping to get some good, interesting perspective on D3 athletics as a whole. Hopefully I'll have more news on that. Friday, I will be rolling out my game or games of the week. So check that out. There's going to be games on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Some real interesting matchups from what I could tell. Now, lastly, an appeal. So hear me out. Listen, this content I love doing. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy it. There are other things I'm trying to do that I could really use your support on, whether you're watching or, better yet, if you want to become a member on Patreon, it would be greatly appreciated. I'm trying to re-energize the D3 world, the D3 soccer world. So have some things that I'm sort of looking at, working on from I'll just say a business perspective, and really putting in a lot of effort. So any support you can give, if you like the content, love the content, hate the content, but you appreciate the content, by all means, if you become a member, it really goes a long way for some of the things I have planned that ultimately will require some financial commitment on my part, so I'm trying to avoid, but you get my point. I'm not going to stop, so just so you know, this train ain't stopping. So that's it. So with that, let's move on to the top 25s, and you know what? Let's start with the ladies, right? Because that's usually my, ladies first. Maybe I should do them second one of these times. I don't know. But ladies first. All right. So first up, I have Emory. They're down a couple. They had a tie against a really good center college. So they dropped a few slots. They're at 4-1-1. Listen, this one's interesting. This might cause some controversy in the world. So I have this thing after a month. that I call the Western Connecticut rule, which is if a team is undefeatable in that first month, I think they should be ranked. It doesn't quite frankly, it doesn't matter the conference strength of schedule. I just think to go undefeated through the month of September, if you play a full slate of games, mind you, if you just played 2, I'm not going to count that. But if you play a full slate of games, you deserve to be ranked if you're undefeatable. I just started this week with this one. So the third rankings, there you go. So in this case, we have an interesting one that I'm ranking at number 24. They are undefeatable. Fairness. They do have a light schedule. They do have a schedule that doesn't rank that doesn't have the strength of schedule that some of the other teams do, but worthy of my attention and this ranking. So at 24, I am putting Westminster out of Pennsylvania. Did that Fields of Dreams too, if you ever interested in seeing what's going on. Great facilities, I'm telling you. What a great soccer field. Okay, so new to the ranking, you have Swarthmore. They're at 6-0-1. The only blemish they had was against Rowan, which is really good. They're really good I think it was a 1-1 tie. But they just beat Franklin and Marshall 2-0. So I think they're worthy too. Next up, Montclair State at 6-1. They've come up a few slots. They had solid wins against Stevens, Misericordia, and Vassar. And really the only blemish that they have is that they lost to Hartford, I think, the second game of the season. Next up, Calvin at 6-0-2. They dropped a few spots. They had a tie against Illinois Institute of Technology. No, Illinois Technology Institute. Illinois Technology. And then they just beat Wittenberg. So they dropped a few spots. So it's getting competitive for spots on the SimpleCoach Top 25. Next up, Messiah. They're staying the same. They had 2 tough losses in a row. They lost to McDaniel, which is very good. They lost to William Smith, obviously very good as well. And then they followed it by a win against Wittenberg by only a goal, but they're seemingly back on track. Next up, Hardin Simmons, up 5 spots from last week, 7-0-1. I'm just saying on the outside, watch out for this team. They tied Trinity, and I think they could sweep their next games until they face Mary Hardin Baylor, which I think is the first week in October. I'd say watch out for them. Speaking of, Mary Hardin Baylor 6-0, one of the second of the 5 undefeatables, or 6. Is it 6? Oh no, 7. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The second of the 7 undefeatables. They're 6-0. They have a huge game against Trinity that happened yesterday, so keep that in mind. Okay, next up at 17, up from 2022, 5-1-1, College of New Jersey. I think this team is getting back on track. They had a win against Stevens, 4-0. I mean, that was a pretty solid win. And they head to upstate, well, it's like an hour north, to Kane on Wednesday. So that'll be a test because it's NJAC. And, I'm not sure if they did, they're allowing knives, clubs, or brass knuckles. That's it. Slow day for me. So they'll choose before game time, but I'm suspecting they'll go with clubs for this match, being an N-Jack. Next up, number 16, big fan of this team, 5-0-1, Washington and Lee, up 7 spots. They had a great win against Bridgewater. I will say, based on their schedule, their next big test is going to be against the outstanding captains of Christopher Newport, and that's on the 1st. Next up, from the frozen tundra of Wisconsin, La Crosse, down 1 spot. They had 2 wins and a tie against Wartburg and a really good Virginia Wesleyan. And the loss that they've had at 8-1 was against Christopher Newport ball teams. So, let's see. Okay, so next up, 14 up a spot, Rowan at 6-0-1. You know, they keep winning. They beat Penn State Berks. They end Kane by a combined score of 10-0. They seem to be on the path to face a very good Montclair on the 7th. So that's going to be a fireworks game. Again, another N-Jack. They'll sort out what weaponry to use for that game. Number 13, the third of the 7 undefeatables, NYU at 6-0. They're up 3 spots. They have a big game. They have a big game on Saturday against Case Western, which is going to be one of the, that's probably going to be the main game, or one of the main games in the in a battle of the SimpleCoach top 25s. So that ought to give you some food for thought as to who's on the top 25s. Okay, so next up, Cal Lutheran at 7-0-1, up 5 slots. They had a big win against Chapman, and they face Occidental on Wednesday, and I think that's always a challenge. At 11, Williams up a spot. They keep rolling. They're at 6-0-1. They just beat Colby and Bowdoin, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain's school. Where are they? There you go. And they face Occidental on Wednesday in a key matchup. So should be interesting. And then at number 10, another undefeatable, staying in the same spot they are at 8-0. They just beat Occidental and Chapman. They keep, floating like a butterfly and stinging like a bee. So undefeatable. Okay, so let's do now the top 10. The top 10. Ooh, drum roll, please. I can do that with sound. Maybe I'll do that with sound instead of my fingers. Okay, so at number 9, you're looking at Amherst, 7-0-1. They're up a couple spots. They beat their NESCAC rivals, Connecticut Bates and Colby. And this Saturday, which again should be fireworks, the a la Katy Perry firework, they face Williams. So number 8, down 6 spots, is William Smith, College of Hobart and Smith fame. They just had a rough go of it. They had a loss to Colby, which surprised me, and then they beat Gordon. I'm sorry, I got the wrong ones. So they tied RIT, and then they tied Skidmore, and they face Ithaca on Wednesday. And who do they face? on Saturday. Sorry, Clarkson. Face Clarkson on Saturday. So, all right. So next up. Okay, at 5-2, Hartford. They are down a couple spots. They lost to Colby and won against Gordon. I'll be quite honest with you. From what I watched when they played Montclair and Emory to start the season, and they throttled both of them, I am expecting more. So I might be a little bit unfair that to my book, they dropped so much. But, I thought that they looked as good as anybody could possibly beat. And so I even had them won on the first week because I thought they were that good. But yeah, I don't know. The Colby loss was a little bit of a surprise to me. So, all right. So next up, you guessed it, the University of Paywall, University of Rochester, lovely campus. If you haven't seen the Fields of Dreams, I wasn't charged to walk around. You know, they still paywall, and they still block me from Twitter despite all of my efforts at reconciliation. I've even consulted with Bishop Matano of the Diocese of Rochester to see if there's some sort of special dispensation I could receive to remove the ban. I'm still banned, though. So they notched another win against St. John Fisher. They face Geneseo today, Tuesday. And then they're away. I don't know if that's how it's going to work for this one, but at Chicago on Saturday. So that's going to be a big, big matchup. Okay, at number 5, 1-1, Johns Hopkins. They are up 4 spots. I think they're sort of coming into their own quietly. They had a really good win against Dickinson, and then I think it was 1-0, followed by a win against Ursinus. So I still think they're really good. It's just a matter of just keep going along. You would think that their margin of victories would be greater, bigger. I don't know. But clearly teams have a target on their back just because they have the star above their badge. Okay, and then at number 4, you have Wash U at 7-0, another one of the 7 undefeatables. I will say they don't have any games coming up, but their next game is against Emory on the 1st, and I think that is just going to be a real banger of a game. So we'll see if they stand the test. After that, at number 3, it's getting exciting. At 8-0-1 is Case Western Reserve. They beat Capital. They played Barron. I think another game on Saturday. This is another top 25 matchup. Will be they play NYU on Saturday. So, okay, and then coming in at number 2, I have Christopher Newport quietly rolling along, another undefeatable at 9-0. They travel to Washington and Lee to play in another big, right? Like, yeah, you're going to have Christopher Newport in Washington and Lee, Case and NYU, and then, and then last night, if you catch it, Mary Hardin Baylor and Trinity, like bangers of the game for this time of year, just real bone crunchers. So that'll be a key matchup to watch. Christopher Newport ranked 2 versus Washington and Lee, 16th ranked in the SimpleCoach top 25s. So And then lastly, no change. I know this is crazy. I'm going out on a limb here. Another undefeatable, and they just keep rolling along. At 9-0, Carnegie Mellon, the Tartans. They stay at number one in the SimpleCoach Top 25. They play Marietta and Brandeis up next. I will say Carnegie Mellon, I think, if I recall, was ranked last year in the SimpleCoach Top 25 at one point or another, maybe even season ending. I can't remember. I should have done the research. But they're at number one, and this is rarefied air, and the pressure is enormous. Once you get the top 25 ranking by SimpleCoach, it's just the eyes of me are on you. So we'll see if they can keep it going. Because if not, Christopher Newport, Case, Wash U, even Hopkins and Rochester are right there, just waiting to step into that spot. So, all right. So that was the top 25s for the women. That took me a while. This one took me a while to sort out because you look at these top 9 right here, and there's not a lot of daylight between them in my book. Even the teams that stumbled, William Smith, Hartford. Granted, those 2 losses were against, I think, Division One, was it, or lost to a Division One, and another one. So I get that, but between them, there's not a lot of difference, and then the rest, they're all tight as well. And so, I mean, you could argue, I should have, Mary Hardin Baylor higher than, and, maybe Washington and Lee lower, like a couple spots lower. You can. It's really tough to sort of determine based on my sort of total lack of rules in terms of how I rank. All right. So with that, let's go with the men. Let's begin. All right, so at 25, I'm going with Occidental. They're new to the poll. So they've been undefeated since losing to Texas Lutheran in the first game of the season, and they've beaten lately Whittier, Pomona Pitzer, and the Redlands, University of the Redlands. So, number 25. Coming in at number 24, a precipitous drop. I apologize ahead for you Eves fans. Down 21 spots. They tied Colby, lost 2-0 to Bowdoin. And I think it was a rough weekend for Williams. I don't know if it was the Bowdoin game or the Colby game. They just, I don't know. They're lacking something, especially against Bowdoin. I just thought they looked like a shadow of themselves. I don't think they looked good on the attack. I don't think they were particularly effective on the press. Not saying that neither of those teams are not good, but I thought Williams expected a little bit more. I think that explains the drop. Next up a spot. One of my favorites this year, SUNY New Paltz, 6-1-1. They lost to SUNY Oneonta 1-0, but then they turned it around and took it to Buffalo State. And SUNY Oneonta, as you'll see, is one of 3 SUNY schools in the top 25. So, they're bringing up the tail end there. They can play. Next up, number 22, Lynchburg, new to the poll this week. They lost to Christopher Newport in the second game of the season, but then they just been, winning. So, next up, number in 21st, down in Tejas, Trinity at 5-0-2, new to the to the poll this week as well. They had 2 ties, and then they just thumped Mary Hardin Baylor 6-1. You guessed it, at 20th in the same spot as last week at 5-2, University of Paywall. Rochester men beating St. John Fisher, and then they tied Stevens, which is not a bad result against a good Stevens team. Next up, number 19, Case Western, 6-1-1. They dropped 7 spots. They had a really tough loss to Mount Union. Carter Poe's former team. But then they followed up with a great win against a very, very good Denison team that could very well be in the top 25 if I'm really, yeah. I'd like to see a little bit more out of them, but they're going to be a force to reckon with here in the next, if not this year, next year. They're just going to be a tough team. Coach Bianco doing great work there. Number 18, one of the 5 undefeatables. Again, rule, if at this point in the season you're undefeatable, you deserve to be in the top 20. It's the Western Connecticut rule. So they're at 7-0. This is the first time in the rankings. Like I said, undefeatable. I will say they play Stevens today, Tuesday, and which I think is going to be a very, very, very key match for both teams. Next up, out of California, University of Redlands down 6 spots to 5-1. They lost to newly ranked Occidental, but then they had a great win against Claremont Mud Scripps, the Stags. Next up, Bowdoin at NESCAC at 5-2. They are up 7 spots. They had a huge win. I thought they looked really good and were really poised against Williams. Beat him 2-0, and that was after tying Middlebury on the road, and a good Middlebury team. Next up at 15, you guessed it, baby, the purple and white of my University of Mount Union Purple Raiders at 15, one of the 5 undefeatable teams in the country at 8-0. Again, undefeatable. They knocked out Calvin. And then it was like, maybe I should rank. Nope, I wanted to see him against Case. They beat Case. And then thinking that they were set up for a trap match against Hiram, they traveled to Hiram on Friday and dispensed with Hiram 2-0. So deserved of this ranking at 15. And I'll tell you what, they could go higher. I think this team is very, very, very good defensively and very, very difficult to break down. And I think for some teams that is going to hurt. And look, on the attack, they are organized and they are set play specialists. So I could talk more, but I won't. Go Raiders. Number 14, as I mentioned earlier, Middlebury 5-2. They dropped three spots. They tied Bowdoin, and then beat Endicott and Bates. I will say with Middlebury, 6 of their last 8 games, so they have 8 games left. 6 of those are on the road. So, yeah, that could be that could be interesting for them. Next up, the Red Dragons of Cortland State, 7-1-1, up 6 spots. They keep winning. They keep winning against good teams. They beat Ithaca handedly 4-0. This sets them up for a crash game against SUNY Oneonta on the 4th of October, which circle your calendar because that's going to be That's going to be a game for the ages. Next up, 12th is North Central. Coach Ficino has his boys really rocking. They're down 3 spots to 8. They are 8-1. They lost to Carleton, which again, good Carleton team, undefeatable, and they took care of Lake Forest, and Elmhurst. So, and yesterday they played a game against Aurora. If you haven't watched it, watch it. It's the second half is just bonkers, and I'll just say one of the goals is just a banger from 25 yards out, upper corner. So check it out. Next up, the Diplomats. Coach Wagner, Franklin and Marshall, 5-1-2, down 6 spots. They had a rough one too, right? Like they tied Haverford and then they lost to Kane, which surprised me. I will say, if you haven't had a chance, watch the Franklin and Marshall at Haverford game from last week, and just watch the segment on when Haverford scored. It is pure soccer excitement. I just love it. The announcers just going crazy. So I would I would encourage you to check that out. Next up after Franklin and Marshall, yes, newbies, Carleton from Minnesota. They are undefeatable, right? At 9-0. They're up 11 spots. They have a big game today against St. Olaf. And I think that's huge for both teams. Carleton to prove that it belongs, St. Olaf to sort of get in gear. I think they're 4-3, 3-3 or 4-3. And so can they sort of get some momentum? And this would be a huge momentum builder for them if they take this game. All right, so now we go on to the top 9, I guess, is what. Let me see what we got. Okay, here we go. Number 9, I got the Jumbos of Tufts. 5-1-1. They're up 9 spots. You know, they've won pretty handedly 3 games in a row following their loss to Amherst. So you got to keep an eye on these guys. They're really starting to get into the groove and really strong attacking wise. So next up, we have at number 8, Texas Lutheran, 9-0, another one of the 5 undefeatables, up 6 spots to 8th. I keep saying crash courses, but these guys are headlong into a big game against Trinity on the 1st. That's going to be a SimpleCoach top 25 game right there. So number 7 from Jersey, 7-0-1, Montclair State up 15 from. Since they tied Vassar, they've beaten Alvernia and just most recently NJCU. I would say the NJCU game sort of encapsulates my thoughts about Montclair. I didn't think they looked particularly impressive in the first half against NJCU. They actually got scored on with like seconds left before the half to tie it. But then in the second half, they just looked like the team I think they could be consistent if they were consistent. Like they were that good. I think individually they just have a collection of some outstanding ball players. After that, at number 6, Amherst, 6-0-1, the Monmouths. They just keep winning. I don't know what else to say there. They just keep winning. Shout out to Enmore Cat's son who scored 2 goals the other day. Just all right, number 5 out of Tejas Tambien, St. Thomas, 6-0-1. They're up 3 spots. They dispatched with McMurray and Harden-Simmons. Like I said, you should watch if you get a chance. Watch Trinity, watch Texas Lutheran, watch St. Thomas, and you'll see that soccer thrives in Texas because they're good. They're good ball teams. There we go. Chicago at number 4, 5-1-1. They had, since losing to Hope, they've beaten Wheaton and Kalamazoo. They're good. I just think they're a little not as solid as they were last year. They just sort of dominated and were sort of in a world of their own. I think it's a little bit more competitive for them this year. Obviously, graduation and whatnot, but they're forced to be reckoned with. So this is where it gets interesting. One of 3 SUNY schools on the boards on the SimpleCoach Top 25. SUNY Oneonta, undefeatable, 8-0, up 3 spots. They had great wins, a great win against New Paltz. Like I said, I'm a big fan of New Paltz, 1-0, and then they beat Geneseo. Their next 3 games are going to be rough. They face RPI, Brockport, and then Cortland. Yeah, that's going to be a tough road for them, but I think they're that good and they're deserving of the spot. Next up, okay, so Mary Washington dropped a spot to number 2. They're at 6-1. The one loss came to Messiah this weekend on Saturday, where they basically lost in a monsoon. So I will say, I thought Messiah, in the conditions of the monsoon, looked better. I thought they were a better team. They were much more aggressive, clearly amped up for this game. But it was sloppy, right? Just the ball was probably 2 tons, weighed 2 tons. There was water on the field. Like, it was just not what I was hoping for. I would have preferred to see them, battle it out on a good field on a nice sunny day, but we didn't have that. So, which leaves me with number 1, Messiah. Obviously, they, like I explained, they beat Mary Washington. So, I would say right now, like, it's a pretty, I think Messiah and Mary Washington actually are showing those things that sort of distance themselves a little bit from everybody. I think they're both extraordinary teams, but I will say it's pretty even, in terms of the quality of play that I'm watching from the top 25s. Like, you could sort of argue up and down, teams because, how they play or whatnot, but it's really fun to see how competitive it is across the board. So, anyhow, that's it for the top 25s. So just to recall, number 1, women, Carnegie Mellon for the 2nd week in a row, undefeatable, followed by the men. It's Messiah. So that's it. So thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the top 25. We got some stuff coming out. I'm hoping tomorrow or Thursday, new show, episode 2, as I had mentioned, or season 2. And then I'm hoping on Friday, I'll get to the games of the week. It all covers Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's some really interesting matches. I will, if you have any thoughts, comments, you agree, disagree, by all means, please throw them down in the comments below. Shoot me an email. I respond. I know that's a little crazy. But, and then lastly, like I said, if you like this content, you enjoy it, you want to see more of it, if you can head on over to the Patreon page down in the description and become a member, that would be just fantastic. I have some things I want to do to better support Division III soccer. And so, all right, people. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and we'll see each other soon.